I don't know if anybody of you knows the Melkweg or has been to Amsterdam and has been to the place, but I'll try to describe as well as possible. And as I said, we have some photographs later also of the building that can make you understand. Maybe I should say at the moment the Melkweg, which is located in a former sugar warehouse that became a milk factory, a dairy in 1920, and for like 50 years it was a milk factory, and then me and some friends took over the building, which is a long story but I keep it short now, and started this alternative cultural center there and called it Milky Way, the Melkweg. The milk is away, the melk is weg. It was connected to the what the building was before, and at the moment it's a building with like 7 different spaces with 2 concert halls on the downstairs floor, one with a 700 capacity, standing capacity, and the other one with 1,500 standing capacity. And then downstairs it also has a photo gallery and a restaurant, bar restaurant, and upstairs there is a cinema, as you can see here, and with around 100 seats, and a theater space with 120 seats. On top of that, the Melkweg also programs on the other side of the street in a 400 capacity room, and the latest project from the last 5 years is a collaboration with the neighbors of the building, the official city theater. Together we built a big theater space, which you will see later, and the Melkweg programs there 6 days every month in that big theater space. So as you already can understand, the programming is very wide. The music goes from jazz and world music to metal and hip hop and everything in between. It's very international. A lot of American, English and European bands. And then there is the theater space, which concentrates on contemporary dance, mainly of young Dutch artists, but also some foreigners from time to time. The cinema has like an art cinema programming with series and with themes, with it could be a program about a director or about an actor or about a country, something which is not happening very much anymore in the Netherlands. And the photo gallery is specialized in photography since more than 20 years. It organizes photography exhibitions, usually like 10 a year, with both established and young upcoming photographers. And then there is also a space that we call the media room, which is like in the middle of the building, a wide exhibition space which is being used for video installations and other like more experimental visual art projects. Altogether, at the moment there come around 400,000 people yearly in the Melkweg. So it's quite a lot. The total capacity is around 2,500 when all the rooms are full. And the building is located in the middle of the city, right behind the light supply, where the city theater is located. So it's also connected to the city in a sense that there is a subsidy, a yearly subsidy from the city of Amsterdam. It's not a huge amount, it's like only 8% of the total budget of the center, so which means that the tickets sales and the drinks and the sponsor money altogether are more than 90% to cover the whole budget of the building. But still the 8% subsidy of the city is important. And the city of Amsterdam also owns the building and also owns the city theater, of course, which is next door. Well, maybe that as a general description from what happens there at the moment. Going back to 1970, the times were very different, and also the Melkweg at that time was much smaller, and of course, but started out as many places in that time as an alternative space for artists to perform their work. In our case, the idea was to make a theater performance there in that building. We needed a building for that. And when we found this old milk factory, it turned out, of course, that there was no electricity and no water and no gas and nothing. So we made a plan to in the summer of 1970, to organize a kind of cultural center for a couple of months in that building with theater performances, concerts, movies, pretty much already in that first summer, everything that is happening there now at the moment. And it was all extremely improvised, but it worked very well because Amsterdam, since 1968, had become a city where large numbers of young people from all over the world started to think that they should go to Amsterdam. And this really started in '68. Before that, it was not the case at all. But and the Melkweg fitted very well in 1970. In this picture that people had, it was a very open, free space with a low ticket price and always something happening. And it was only very short, actually. It was only 2 months in 1970. And after that first summer, we also did 4 weeks long a theater performance, which was a very different story because it was a performance about death. And so the place closed for a week after 2 months of music and dance and theater and happiness and smoking joints and looking at light shows, and opened up again for a 4-week theme performance about death, including a graveyard inside and 2 cars that had crashed in one space and all kinds of performances. So it drew a completely different crowd. In the summer, the audience was very international, as I just indicated, and in that, and there was like hardly anything put into changing the building. There was only in that first summer only the walls were painted and with wood, bars were built, and like all extremely temporary things were done. And in the winter, me and some friends thought that this was a very nice experience and that maybe we should do it again in the summer of '71, which we did. Again, we got a little money from the city to improve few little things about the building, because the fire police had found out that the Melkweg existed. They didn't in the first summer, but in the second they did. So some things had to be improved. And after those 2 summers, the Melkweg was closed for nearly a year, but in that time I was trying with some people to turn this into a permanent cultural center. And now what I'm telling you is already the beginning of the story of this building, that before rebuilding or building it, we started to organize programs. And it has always continued like that in a way, because when in the end of '72 we managed to open up the building, we got the permission to be open, but there was hardly any money to invest in the building and making it fit for what we were doing. And it also was not summer anymore but winter, and winter is cold in Amsterdam. And so there was a very different atmosphere, and the audience was not that international anymore. And that was the starting point of the permanent center as it is there now, in the end of '72. What happened then is that with some subsidy, some yearly subsidy from the city, that somehow, let's put it like this, people talk a lot about the '60s, as a very interesting and wild time, but I think what they mean is really happened in the 70s. The 60s happened in the 70s. The 60s were what I remember as a small boy, very boring actually, until the end of course. And so the Melkweg became very popular from 73 on, when it opened with only some of the spaces that are available now. And that is also where the story started of rebuilding the place. We were constantly rebuilding this building for in fact, I will tell you later, for 25 years there was permanent rebuildings going on. And in the beginning that was all not with official companies, but all with friends and people who were very good at doing something. And I realized that cinema looks a little bit like the space here at the moment. And so improving the building through these 7-8 years till around 1980 was a thing that happened in between, and 2 times a year the Melkweg would close for 10 days, and everybody would work like crazy in those 10 days to repair the damage from the half year before, and to improve some things and make some things better, and so on. And that was our way of thinking basically, and because we never could consider to close down and rebuild and reopen again. And also nobody was giving us lots of money in that time to do that. Well, after 1980, the early 80s, some things changed both in the Melkweg and in Amsterdam. The success was very big at the end of the 70s, lots of people coming from Germany also. But then sometime in the early 80s, also in the countries around Holland, similar clubs started to open up, like in the Ruhrgebiet, everywhere. This started to happen, and also in Belgium and other places. And the Melkweg had to change in terms of programming, and also we decided that the 60s were really over now, and that in the early 80s the look of the building should change, because in the 70s there was it was quite dark in the building. Most colors were dark inside of walls, and it was very cozy, and people could walk around the whole building in all different spaces. And but we decided that this had to change, and so there was a lot of white paint brought in, and there was a lot of light brought in, and it was quite a change. And also what happened is that in those glorious 70s, the ticket price was very low, like a €2 ticket if you want to compare it to now. And with that people could walk through the whole building, go to any kind of performance, to a theater, to a movie, to a concert. And by the early 80s we decided that we would focus much more on the programming instead of the audience, because that is what happened in the first 10 years. The audience were the focus and not that much the programming. But the reason to change that basically was that the number of people that came to have a good time in the place grew too big, and the number of people that came to see a certain concert or performance became too small, so the balance was wrong. And I can give examples, a good example, like when a theater company thinks that the people were not paying attention so well, that's kind of understandable for many reasons. But when a guitarist from a band says to you afterwards, when we came in we thought, Jesus Christ, full house, great, fantastic. But then during the concert we thought, there's something strange going on in this room. And we thought, why are these people here exactly? Are they here for us or for some other reason? Well, the people in the room were not so much there for the band. They were there to have a good time, maybe to sit down and smoke a joint, and the majority did not come for this band. And the band felt that. It was the response wasn't as big as you would expect from a large group. And those kind of signals were the reason for the Melkweg to change in the early 80s and to focus on the programming and to charge, very simple, a different ticket price for every concert. For an expensive band, an expensive ticket; for a cheap band, a cheap ticket. This may sound very logic to you at the moment, but it was a big change after 10 years of one low ticket price daily and people coming every day for whatever program was going on. So during the 80s, some more rebuilding took place of this former milk factory. More structural, also more. Some walls were moved, maybe not seriously, but thinking about a different structure of the building, making it more practical. And but very quickly already, the focus was directed on the fact that the left part of the building did not belong to us. We didn't have it. The neighbors had it. The National Ballet had it, who were housed in the City Theatre. And when they got a new opera building, where the ballet moved to in 1986, that space became free. And we managed to get hold of the space. And my concept then was that we have to have a better concert hall than we have now, and a bigger one, and we can make that in this left part of the building. Unfortunately, in the late 80s, the economy was not doing so well in Europe. Does anybody remembers here? It's happening again at the moment, but and so it was very difficult to find any support and money for plans like this. But we had the space and we used it as an old empty factory hall. And by the early 90s, I managed to get the city of Amsterdam interested in helping to finance it. We went to a bank and we went around to look for sponsors, and by 95 we managed finally to build this at that time 1,000 capacity concert hall in the left side of the building, and being the right side in the upstairs. Then in 95, looking basically as they had looked for 25 years, which is a very long time, from 1970 to 95. On the left side suddenly was this brand new, good-looking concert hall, and also the entrance outside the building, as you will see later, is at a canal, so there is a bridge to the building, and on the bridge we built a glass entrance to make the entrance bigger. And so suddenly in November 95, the Melkweg existed of the old Melkweg and the new Melkweg, left and right, basically. But it was a big step for the center, in a sense that everything doubled when this hall called the Max was opened in the end of 95. The number of performances doubled, the number of audience doubled, the number of workers doubled, the number of income, of cost, everything doubled. So it was a big success to build this new concert hall, and it gave the Melkweg a real new life, actually. So in the years after, I focused on bringing together this new part of the building and the old part, because it felt very strange to come in, go to a concert in the new space and be in this kind of nice modern environment, and go to a concert in the old hall or the cinema or the theater, and come in these little corridors and a very different looking building. But as you maybe remember, in the late 90s the economy was doing very well in Europe until the internet bubble around 2000, and so I managed in those years to find enough money to also completely rebuild the old concert hall, the cinema, the theater upstairs, and also bring together this new entrance part and old entrance part and make this into one large foyer. And so by 2000, this old Melkweg, that was 30 years old then, finally was there, like standing as a completely rebuilt building. And for the first time, like all the spaces were kind of technically and otherwise also fit for what we were using them for. And so that really worked very well. And what it, of course, also means is that you get more artistic possibilities when you have better spaces, when you have bigger spaces. You can book bigger bands. People are more attracted to a bigger space usually. And so it really meant a lot. And all these changes were always connected to rebuilding and building. By then I thought that this is it, the building is finished, it's great, it works good, I can go and do something else. And but then I ran into this plan of the resident theater company of the City Theater, our neighbors, who did not want to play in the old City Theater anymore because it's a very old-fashioned Viennese, beautiful little theater, but with a very small opening for the public. And they wanted a big modern theater space somewhere in Amsterdam. And what I did then with my architect friend who had rebuilt the Melkweg between 1995 and 2000, I asked him to see if this modern space maybe could be built between the City Theater and the Melkweg. It's a stupid idea, but hey, why not? Let's have a look. And this was only possible if you would build over the Melkweg a little bit, because there was not enough space on the ground floor, that was obvious. So he made this box kind of drawing and plan in 1998, 99. And then we went to the City Theater and the theater company, and they were very enthusiastic, and we went together to the politicians in the town. They became even more enthusiastic of high culture and low culture working together on a grand project. And then also somehow within a year and a half, this fantasy of building this new space there, you know, in the middle of the city center, between these two buildings, on top of one of them, seemed to become a reality, and so it did. It took till 2005 before the building could start, but if you look at the budgets that were involved before, what we did in the Melkweg in 95 cost 5 million guilders, which is roughly 2.5 million euro. Okay, it's more than 15 years ago, but to give you an example. And then the rebuilding of the rest of the building had a similar budget, also 2.5 million euro. And then this building that we did, which I have some photographs later, between 2005 and 2009, it took 4 years to build this, it opened in 2009, that costed 50 million euro. So it's a completely different dimension. It costed 20 times as much as the buildings we had done before. So if you look at the result of this, what I should mention is that I didn't come up with this idea to build this new space because I was such a huge friend of the theater, the neighbors, and of the theater company, but I am basically, but that was not the reason. What happened is this Max concert hall that we built in 95, very quickly it was clear that it was too small. The 1,000 capacity audience for Amsterdam was too small. We needed a bigger room, which is not possible because you're in the middle of the city. How can you make it bigger? And then this idea of building up in the air this modern theater space gave this opportunity, and then maybe the Max can move in the other direction, can be extended. And this is what happened. The Melkweg Concert Hall, the Max, was reopened in 2007 because it was in the bottom of this whole building project. And the capacity went up to 1,500, which meant, again, more interesting bands and more interesting artists could be booked in there because you can sell more tickets. And in the summer of 2009, the theater space up there was finished and opened. And so this seems to be the the last step in the building possibilities in this very little area, and it improved the possibilities for the Melkweg a lot. In this new theater space upstairs, there can people can be seated there, so the Melkweg now also organizes seated concerts for certain kinds of music and certain kinds of public. It's much better if everybody can sit, the artist and the public. And so what happened here through this growing process in 40 years is, it's kind of interesting that if you look back to 1970, the public and the artists and the people behind the Melkweg were very different people with very different interests than the people who would go to the official city theater and to the performances there. And in those 35 to 40 years that went by, somehow both the culture that happens in the Melkweg and the whole understanding of it, and also the attitude and the level of culture in the city theater came from very different points kind of together and are cooperating within this big building there in the center of Amsterdam. Of course, the theater and the theater company, they work largely for a different audience than the Melkweg works for, but there are contact points and there are moments where all these different publics walk through this whole place, because we organize events together from time to time. Now what I have told you so far is the kind of the shortest version of trying to tell you what the Melkweg is, where it came from and what it meant in that time, and how it developed through the years, and how this was influenced by these rebuilding and building projects. I don't know how much you are interested in how you should do a rebuilding or how you should build a cultural center, because there is a lot to say about that as well, but it's kind of a different subject, basically. You know, what do? How do you rebuild a building? You just start? No, you better first make a plan. And how do you make the plan? And do you need an architect? And how do you find an architect? And how should you select an architect and work with him or her? It's a bit a different story. So I don't exactly know. We could have a look at some pictures that maybe you have an idea about what the space I talk about. I think there are some photographs of all the spaces as they are at the moment. This is the cinema of the Melkweg. I must say it looks good in reality, but it looks even better always on the video. It's on the upstairs of the building, and as you can see, it still has the old wooden structure. This is the photo gallery downstairs. The building has an entrance on one street on a canal, but on the other side of the building is a street. So this gallery is open daily from 12 o'clock for free. Everybody can walk in there, and as well as the restaurant, which is next door. And in the evening, the gallery is part of the organized program, and so it's also open in the evening when people are there who bought a ticket for a concert or a theater performance. You're still in the gallery?
Yes.
Robert?
You will go next.
This is the original concert hall of the Melkweg, on the right side of the building if you come in. It's called the Oude Zaal, the old room. And it was necessary to find a new name because it was called the big room, but then when we built the big room, then we couldn't call this the big room. And it has been completely renewed 10 years ago with a new balcony and with a double wall, because we never really got rid of the neighbors complaining, although the worst complainers moved away from the center of Amsterdam, from around the Melkweg. But in this rebuilding in 2000, there was a box was built inside the room basically, and since then there is no problem at all anymore with sound. All the photographs have no public, so that you can look at the space itself instead of at the people. And this is a room with a 700 capacity. Hey, sorry for that. I didn't see him for a while. I think we saw this. Okay. So we ended from being inside the building and having seen two spaces. We ended in the outside. The low building there with the blue neon on it, saying Melkweg, that is the original Melkweg building, the milk factory. This incredible large building up there is the new space that I just mentioned, that we built between 2005 and 2009 together with the neighbors. Maybe we should continue, and yeah, it even looks bigger from here. Thank you very much. What is sticking out here, you see there's a part sticking out, that is the foyer of the building, because there was no space inside around the theater space itself to hold enough people, you know, in breaks or before or after performances. So this is sticking out above the canal, and on the left you see the light supply, and far away through that door is the old building of the city theater, and the public for their performances enters in the old building on the light supply and comes through this corridor to the theater space. And for the Melkweg performances, we have an entrance at next to our main entrance. So the Melkweg has its own entrance. People go up the stairs to the performance. This is the space inside. So everybody who is a little bit aware of theater spaces and techniques, this is what a modern theater room looks like. It's very high above the stage. And the stage is 30 by 20 meters, and the Melkweg uses that a lot as a concert space for seated and standing audience, and builds a stage on top of the stage. Yeah, this is looking from the stage up to the 500 seats that are permanent up there. Yeah, and this is seeing the building from the lights plane. And that's inside. Of course, it's a much more complicated space for the Melkweg technicians to work, this space, because it's big. you have to build everything every time you use it, and that's why we have these 6 days periods. We build once the lights, the sound, the stage, and then have 5 or 6 programs in there in a week. Because in modern theater, a lot of money and workforce hours are spent in making theater performances. It's not like a rock concert where it goes all very quickly. Yeah, this is all from around the opening. It's just, I think we can maybe.
Where did you get money for this building?
Well, very interesting. The two relatively financially small rebuildings that we did in the Melkweg, we had to find a lot of money ourselves, or borrow it, or find it from sponsors. And this building of this new space was fully paid. The 50 million were fully paid by the city of Amsterdam. Oh, that's the Melkweg tea room. That's the foyer for the theater upstairs. I don't know, are there only tea room photos in this map? Okay. Hey, we jump a little bit. This is the Max, the main concert hall of the Melkweg, downstairs, which since 2007 holds 1,500 people. And I think it's at a performance of Gogol Bordello, if somebody knows Gogol Bordello. That was in the opening week, I think. Okay, this is the room, this is the space empty, the Max big concert hall. And what was very good is that it used to be 21 meters long, and after the enlarging it's 31 meters long, and in those last 10 meters the stage is, and the stage is like, the ceiling is 3 meters higher than it is in the room itself. The room itself is only like 6 meters, which is relatively low, good for acoustics, but otherwise low. But above the stage it's very high, so the light can be very high, and that works very good. Okay, shall we try and go to another space? Oh, that's the same. That's the same. Yeah, this is the Melkweg theater space upstairs, just as well as the cinema and that foyer that you just saw. And this is a very nice room. It's with the rebuilding in 2000, we tried to make it as big as possible. It's the center of the building, and we took out all the old wooden structure that was keeping the roof up and put in steel structure, so that it has become a much higher room than it was. and it has like 120 seats, big seats, and as I say, it's mainly used for contemporary dance performances. It's a very nice studio theater. Let me see. Cinema, gallery. Yeah, I think we have seen all the photographs that we have. Yeah. Okay, that's it for the pictures. And if you have any questions about anything, I'm willing to answer them. Either about the building or about the program or about...
How was the crew of the Melkweg involved in the building and reconstruction throughout the years?
Well, I learned a long time ago that when you make a plan to rebuild your building, that you have to make what you call a program of points. You have to formulate what your goals are and what you want in a space. And the only people that the people you have to start with are the people who work there in the place, who do the work. Be it the technicians, be it the people who work in the bar. People who work in the place are the ones who create the beginning of what they think is necessary and should be done. So that's how we did that very much. And it's a long process. You don't start a big rebuilding within a month. Usually it's like minimum a year or 2 years from making the first plan to really starting the work. And of course you also have to go to outside experts or what we did is we visited quite a lot of other centers who were new or rebuilt and just looked at what went wrong, what was good there, what is bad there. And so it's, if you want to be successful in creating a new building, you have to spend a lot of time on the preparation and on making sure that what you are investing money in and doing in is that it really works. And of course, especially like technicians, if you talk about acoustics and about stage height and what kind of stage material to be used to construct it, technicians in Holland never agree with each other. Like within the Melkweg, they don't, everybody has a different opinion. So it's tricky but you have to involve the people in your own center. Otherwise, you can be sure that it doesn't work.
Even in the beginning, they were involved even the building itself?
In the beginning?
In the 70s or?
In the beginning, everybody was a builder, including me, standing on ladder and painting. And yes, that. Well, I don't know. The beginning was very informal, with very little money, and only for a summer, and with lots of ideas what to do, and yeah. So then it basically a group of friends who is brought together and who is going to do this, without any experience or any idea what how exactly to do what. But that's always a very, anybody who has been involved in the center or is involved, it's a very interesting period, the pioneer period. You learn a lot.
I would like to ask about the and very well. But for sure, behind the story of this result, there are some, I don't know, big crisis or big.
Yeah.
So you can mention some of this kind of.
Yeah, if you stay too long in one company, then there are for sure some crisis or big crisis. Yeah, not necessarily related to building or rebuilding. You mean just in general, like policy disagreement. Well, I think from what I have been saying, you can kind of understand that this cultural center started very spontaneous and very, not amateur, but not unprofessional, not amateur, but without many ideas about how to do this exactly, but finding out while you're going, basically, how to organize, how to do this, how to do that, and so on. And then the success was so big in the 70s, so many people coming and everybody happy and everybody a good time and more people coming to work there, more friends, and then at some point you don't have any friends anymore to come to work, so friends of friends of friends of friends come to work, and so basically you make a lot of mistakes if you look at it from how should you organize a center. You should, now you think you should look, if you need somebody to do a certain job, then you make a profile of the job and you make a job description, a profile of the person and a job that you think you need and a job description, and you start to talk to people, look for people and find them maybe. And of course in this time it was more like, he's a very good guy and he can do a lot of things and so on. Okay, come and work here. And then when the person is there, you say, okay, what shall we let you do? What do you want to do? So there's a lot of, and it's also connected to this time, the 70s, early 80s, of course. I think that very much everybody felt like a shareholder in this institution. It's a non-profit. Okay, there is somebody who looks like a director, but wasn't called a director in that time, but like coordinator or something, and everybody also feels who works there in these years that it's my club also, which is good because it's it means people invest a lot of energy and really like it, but it can also create problems, of course, and this usually happens when there are financial problems. And this also happened to the Melkweg after this big success of the first 10-12 years. In the 80s, the changes that I talked about in the beginning also made sure that by 87, when we already had the plan to build this new space but didn't have the money but only had the space on the left side, that the Melkweg was starting to lose money. Because what happens, of course, is that when the program changes and you try to save money on all kinds of things and try to make more money on all kinds of things. But the last thing you want to do is to send away people, to fire your friends and family, because the organization feels like a family, is looked at as a family by the people who work there. And well, by 87, as I remember the year right, I think, there was no way out anymore. It was like this place disappears, or it must be completely reorganized, and certain things that everybody thinks it's the only way to happen. No, it's not the only way. They have to happen in a different way. They have to happen with less money or not happen at all anymore. And we are too many people, much less people have to work here, otherwise we're not even going to make it to this future point where this new hall is maybe there and we will grow. And so this created a very big philosophical and ideological argument in the summer of 87. And it was very interesting because the Melkweg, being a founding member of Trans-Europe Hall Network in 83, when it was started in Brussels by Philippe Crombert, In this, I think it was June '87, organized a Transjoop Hall meeting in the Melkweg in Amsterdam. And at the same time, this reorganization plan was going on that was being implemented, and a lot of people who worked there were very unhappy about that, and they decided to demonstrate this unhappiness by occupying the Melkweg during the week that all the international guests were visiting from all over Europe for the Transjoop Hall meeting. And so this was very interesting as a program for the international guests, of course. This was absolutely the best. And what it meant was that I and my direct colleagues, we were not allowed to enter the building in these 6 days. So I moved the daytime program to the Paradiso, which is more or less similar, more on concerts, concentrated club, very close to the Melkweg, on the other side of the Leidseplein. And I moved my office to a bar on the Leidseplein. For 7 days I had an office there in the bar at the billiard. It's very good. And anyway, and so this was a demonstration of we do not agree. We don't want these changes. We are very unhappy. And the director is talking about reorganizing and building a new space. This is a bit crazy. You can only do one. I thought you could do both, but and so after this week, there was a lot of discussion about this, of course, also in the daytime. And there were other centers present who had similar problems or experiences. And you know. But after the week, the negotiations started with the people who occupied the building, and well, in the end, everything happened the way I thought it had to happen at that moment. But it was the end of a period. You know. It was the end of the 70s in 1987. But because everything had changed already, but there were too many people working still, but also the attitude had to change. There were young people coming in at that time already who didn't really understand what these older people were. What they were making problems about. And they liked it there. They wanted to work there. You know, it's like, and so so that was also the moment to change the structure of the organization completely, to make it more formal, to make it more clear, to write it more down, to also start up a workers' council, and kind of. The Melkweg grew up, kind of, you know, became more like, on this level at least, part of society, how things are organized in society. Instead of doing it all their own way, basically. Yeah. Well, it could have gone wrong that week, you know, it could have gone wrong. It could very well have been that I would not have been sitting here today telling you these stories, but yeah. And one of the things was like it was really hard. This is 1990 to find any architect in Holland who had built something that we were looking for, what we wanted, and because new clubs, new venues were not being built. All the venues were in old buildings, whatever, factories, churches, whatever. And so, and this was like, we were building a new space inside a building, basically. And, well, we had all kinds of, we wanted somebody who had original ideas about design, but at the same time would understand, would know himself about acoustics, somebody who would be like a consumer himself, an architect who would know what a concert is and a concert hall and an audience, and not somebody who has no idea because he never, seen a band play or something. And so we had a whole list of points, and then one of them was that the architect should live within 10 kilometers from the Melkweg or something. Well, not that serious. And then I found this architect by going through a book that was published in Holland about grand cafes in Holland. And so I just looked at all the design stuff, and then one of them was in a building with a small concert hall, theater space, and a cinema, an old church. The architect built a new building in front of the old church and brought all these functions together. So we thought that was interesting, went to have a look at the place. It just opened half a year before. We liked it, and we liked the style. And then we went to meet the architect and talk to him. And this was 1990. And this guy, Jim Klinkhamer, became the architect of the Max room, of the rest of the Melkweg. And is also the one that, with me, made this crazy idea to design this big box there up in the air. And also got the job to do that in the end. Although that wasn't clear, because the city, like, I don't know how this is in your countries, but when a city pays for a serious rebuilding and the word architect is mentioned, they think, an international architect. We want a famous architect to build a building in our city, And this also happened after we presented this plan. And but then both the City Theatre and the theatre company, the other two partners with the Melkweg, all liked so much to work with him that we together put pressure on the city and said, no, we don't want an Italian or Spanish, sorry for any of you here, famous architect to come and tell us what we don't want, or because this is very dangerous. That if an architect is too much focusing on his design and on or making a landmark in the city, or and you have to be able to work together with an architect. He has to understand what you want, and he has to be honest, and it helps a lot if he is also technical, knows a little bit what is possible, what is not, and which in the end means that he can also make a design for the money that you have, instead of for the double money that you don't have in the end, which happens a lot if you choose the wrong architect. So we were very lucky to find this guy.
How many kilometers did he live from the Melkweg?
Well, that was the only minus point. He lived in his office was at that time in Amersfoort, and he lived in Hilversum. But like when he made the original plan in 1990, and we started building in 95, 5 years is a very long time. There was a moment in 92 when I called him and I said, hey Jim, listen, we need to update the plans a little bit. And he said, oh, you mean there's still a chance that it will happen? I said, yes, of course. What do you think it will happen? Yes, oh. So, and by the time we really started in 95, like 3 months before, he moved to Amsterdam, completely not because of the rebuilding, but he wanted to. And he ended up living around the corner from where I lived, so we went on the bicycle together for a year to the Melkweg all the time to check things and to, so the only point that he didn't fulfill in the end was perfect.
In which way the citizens of Amsterdam were involved in the project of the rebuilding, and also how they are involved in your cultural activities? I would say not as public, of course.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, the city was not really interested, but it's always hard to imagine how, like 40 years ago, how political dimensions and how it worked, how people. But one thing looking back is clear that in Amsterdam, the politicians very quickly kind of thought, oh, okay, these young people, they want something and they look strange, but they maybe, so they didn't fight against, really. They were kind of like, oh yeah, sure, they want to use this building, yeah, let them use this building. So they were kind of tolerant towards, for some reason, but probably to avoid problems, to keep the children happy, to keep them from the street, to not to start breaking down things or fighting. It's like usually the motives are kind of negative, but it worked in that time. And then for a long time it was very quiet around the Melkweg and also the Paradiso. We grew up kind of together. The Paradiso is even 2 years older than the Melkweg. And no, the city wasn't really interested. They gave some money every year. Money came from the youth department, not from the culture department in the 70s and most of the 80s. And then somehow when I wanted to build this new space, nobody was interested. What? They want money, new space? No. In the 80s, economy not doing well and so on. And then I think what changed a little bit is Amsterdam became a multicultural city, as they call it, meaning that a lot of black people, later Turkish people, later Moroccan people who came for work, live in and around Amsterdam, and suddenly this city became a not like London, but a little bit like London, kind of city. And politicians start to be interested and to be worrying about this, and then of course the traditional cultural institutions, never any black or Moroccan or Turkish person would walk in because there happens nothing that they are interested in, so they don't go there. But there would be things happening in the Melkweg that they were interested in. So suddenly this, what we always thought was logic, that you book an African band because they're very good, and then Africans come. Yes, of course, Africans come when you book an African band. So kind of not a policy, it's just normal. It's what happens. It's what you do. And then suddenly I realized in the early 90s that a big shot politician in the newspaper says, well, the Amsterdam cultural institutions should take an example of the Melkweg. These people know what they're doing. They involve the whole city. Everybody can come there. This is how it should be done. So, hey, after 20 years, saying something positive about the Melkweg, like even if it's something that you didn't really plan or look at it. Well, okay, sure, if they want to see it like that, then it's very good. So that helped a lot. That helped a lot, I think, in the early 90s and 92, to get at least the city to pay some money for this rebuilding of this Max concert hall. And somehow when this very nice new space was there, lots of people started to become more positive about the Melkweg. More like the guy from the city who of the department that owns the building, who I always had to talk to about money for maintenance and stuff. He suddenly liked it, and he suddenly had money to help us, because it looked a bit more like a place where he would feel comfortable himself a little bit. I think so. Must have been like that. So after that, in the second half to renovate the rest of the building, the city of Amsterdam sold their shares in the gas company that they owned. Okay, so the city had a lot of money and decided to put some money in culture. And yes, of course. So our image had changed. I wasn't even aware that we had a not so good image at the city. Or we didn't have a bad image. We had no image. They had no idea. And it became very positive from the early 90s on. And so they gave money for that too. And then for this last plan, of course, if you talk about the City Theatre and the Resident Theatre Company, these are all institutions that are financed 100% by your local government or by the Ministry of Culture or what. So the city paid the whole 50 million euro to build this project there. It's, they own the building, you know, both the buildings, so it's kind of logic. But there is, of course, this difference in prestige between the traditional arts, you know, high and lower culture kind of coming together now and then, here and there. Doesn't mean that they're treated in the same way by the authorities. For sure not financially. You know, the institutions like classical orchestras and the opera and the city hall and the resident theater company. It's obvious if you want to have them, you have to pay for them. And you have to pay a lot of money if you are, you know, a city or a country. And institutions like that are more, you know, like hands-on and more alternative. It's for the politicians still a question mark. You know, do we need this kind of institutions? I forgot what your question was. Like, how do we make them pay? Yeah.
You never had a problem. They wanted to put you out of the building, or what was the contract?
No. Oh, the contract was for 3 months, and by the time that after the 2 summers in the building, this is very funny, that we asked for money to rebuild the building permanently. They refused it. Okay, you know, let's ask for another summer project, because they were apparently easy in giving some money for the summer. So we did, and then nothing happened, nothing came. On the 8th of August, I remember very well, 1972, I'm invited to come and see the City Council of Arts. And very, very interesting, summer project, yeah, very good, good, good. And I'm thinking, like, what am I doing here? It's in the middle of the summer. We're talking about a place that has to open still and needs work and money. And, you know, but after 45 minutes, yeah, very good, and yeah, great, good, we'll do it, you'll get the money. 3 weeks later, the money came in the end of August. It was money needed for the firemen to make fire stairs outside and do things. And so by November, we could open, in 72, we could open one space and another, and on New Year's Eve, for the first time, we had a big event also in the old concert hall. And this was something completely different than that Melkweg from those 2 summers, as I said before. And like around March or something, I got a phone call from the man from the culture department, and saying like, hey, Cor, hey, how are you? Yeah, okay. By the way, are you still in that building, in that milk factory? I say, well, Rick, listen, first of all, I picked up the phone, didn't I? Say, yeah, sure. And second, do you remember that we had a meeting with the arts counselor in August, and that you sent us the money in the end of August, and that we had to do all these things, and so we opened in November, and he said, oh, yeah, I understand. I think we have to come and talk. Sure, come and talk. So they came and talked. So in that time, it's just like the difference between the reality you want to do something, you ask for some money, you know, they invite you. It's in the middle of the summer. They don't even really know that it's for a summer project, you know, or something. And then you just go on and think, okay, good. We do it in the winter, the summer project. What's the problem? And I forgot your question.
Contract.
The contract, yeah. So that's so. What kind of contract did we have for the building? They didn't even notice that we were in the building still. 8 months later. But then, no. After that, the Melkweg is very much part of the cultural movement in Amsterdam, and of course this big project helped the Melkweg a lot in terms of connections with the city. And because it was not the plan of the city theater, but it was our plan, which is very strange, actually, the smallest partner in the three, you know. But and it was our architect who built the building, which also was very important. I think if the plan would have come from the big boys up there, I'm sure it wouldn't have worked for the Melkweg, you know. And no. So there is a good contract.
You have a long-term contract?
Yeah, it's a long-term contract. Yeah.
When did you get it? When did you sign it?
Well, for a very long time, they only wanted to sign 3-year contracts. Well, every time a 3-year contract. And I think in 2000, after 30 years, he got a contract that does not have an ending date in it anymore. I mean, it has a possibility in it for them to cancel the agreement, but.
How were you able to get the investment to build all of these spaces when you only had these short contracts?
That's completely impossible, especially to borrow money from a bank. If you don't own the building, you want to rebuild it. But I managed to find a bank who gave us a loan of 750,000 euro, and who also sponsored 250,000 euro. And this is a bank that had set up a fund to sponsor arts. So that's why I went to talk to them. And they just trusted it. We had a meeting with the regional director, and he said, okay, yeah, you own nothing, I understand. And everything inside, the value is nothing, like equipment and stuff. So, yeah, but hey, you're here since 25 years, the city trusts you, why wouldn't I trust you? I said, yeah, sure. Very good concept. I agree with you. And so normally it's very difficult, but and I'm sure that 10 years before it would have been impossible. It's the right time frame, the right way people look at you at that moment, and
How many people you work there? In which budget you're managing, and in which way you are managing the space in the vertical or horizontal way, or how you decision or who report,
yeah. Well, altogether they work at the moment 250 people, different people. If you break it down to full-time jobs, it's 110 full-time jobs, but a lot of people are part-time, working part-time in the bar, in the garderobe, and because the program goes up and down. Like one day there's 10 programs and you need 120 people to work, and the next day is only a movie and a theater performance, and only 8 people have to work. So it has to be very flexible. And basically it's quite traditionally organized in a way, with a management team now, with 2 directors and 2 head of staff, 1 the backstage staff, technicians, production, everybody working to make the program happen, and the other one responsible for everybody working with the public, from the door to the bars, everybody relating to the public. But the reality is that there is a lot of, some departments are very big. Like the bar department has 60 people working there. On the door, it's also like 60 individuals involved in working there. And so from this little family-oriented group of friends doing everything together, it has become a layered and structured organization. And for like more than 20 years, there's a workers' council which has an official relationship with the management, and it's that. And at the same time, it's a very informal place where only first names are being used. It has a lot of the roots are still there somehow, and of somehow the street credibility of the Melkweg also towards the outside world. But also the people who work there still feel that they that they are a shareholder, that it's their place. It's not like working.
The same people are working there for a long time.
The people who stay the longest are the programmers.
This
There are not so many jobs like that, and if you're good and you like to do it, then hey, this is what you do. So I hired somebody who was 22 and who is 48 now and still works there, and he's very good as a music programmer. And but what is very important is that like on the door, in the garderobe, in the bars, there is a lot of changeover. A lot of students working for years. Some students never leave. They stay. They stop their study and stay there. But most people, what I mean is there's a lot of coming and going. So the average age of the workers in the building is kind of like the public, basically. Majority between 20 and 30, the people coming there and the people working there. There's some younger people coming there, older people coming, of course, also for certain programs. And and then of course, somehow it has become accepted that certain jobs you need skills to be technician, to do production work. You need skills. It's not something everybody can do. And somehow I think it's working quite well there, although it's complicated with so many people and every day so many programs coming in and going out, and it's kind of a high pressure of work, and the program was always booking all these programs in the same days, in the same weekend, 5 nights.
A year before.
Sorry?
How long, in which terms you do it this before? Half a year, a year?
No, 3 to 6 months, I would say, is most of the music programming still happening. Not longer before. And for some reason, it's always like, the international program always comes and everything comes together. And then there's 6 days in a row that you're open till 6 in the morning, and there's 10 programs every day. And the staff, the workers say, like, why? Can we not divide it a little bit? Can we not do this in 2 weeks instead of in 5 days? No, we cannot. It's like, if you want to do the program, you have to do it on that day. Otherwise, it goes somewhere else, It's, so there is friction about these.
Are you founder of this place? You are the first one who come in, and you are still there.
No, I was I am the founder. Yes, I was, and I am in 1970, and I left last summer as general and artistic director after 41 years, and I was involved till January in helping my successor to get around the job and advising him. And now I have only I am the only thing I officially do for the Melkweg is I try to develop a private sponsor program, because that is something the Melkweg doesn't have. There are sponsors, some corporate sponsors, but we try for the future to develop a private sponsor finding program. And that's all I do.
And with which budget you deal today?
Sorry?
With which budget you are dealing today?
The Melkweg,
Yeah.
as a total, the turnover is 12 million euro, and
A year?
and 900,000 is subsidy from the city, and like the tickets are like 6 million coming in on tickets, 3.5 million coming in on the bars. Sponsoring is like 400,000, not more, a year. Corporate sponsoring from some company.
Altogether, 13 million
Yeah,
euros a year.
yeah, yeah. It grew very big, but it has 400. It has 400,000 or more than 400,000 people buying a ticket. So that gives you already an idea how much money comes in.
Mainly mainstream.
Sorry?
Mainly, it's mainstream.
The program, that is completely depends on where you stand and how you look at it. It's still so that most of the bands that play in the Melkweg, if you go in the street and you ask the people, they have no idea what you talk about. But inside it's sold out. So it's in that sense it's not mainstream. But it goes from Snoop Dogg to Elvis Costello or Willie Nelson to, these extremes and much less famous, and a lot of rappers, a lot of all the hip hoppers come by, metal bands. So it's for very many audiences. When like something like the Melkweg in the 70s had like an alternative audience, and everybody thought it was one audience. This is not the case since a very long time at all. Many different people come to many different programs, and a lot of them have nothing to do with each other. Totally interested in totally different things.
And it has a social program in the community, the neighborhood really involving the community, the neighborhood doing something with this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like social thing for the neighborhood where you are living. Are they interesting in all these things? They came in, they do something, they use the space. You know what I mean?
Well, the Melkweg has no neighborhood. The Melkweg has no neighborhood. It's in the center of town, in outgoing district. So it's not like, that a lot of people live around you, basically. And generally, it's in a big city, this is very difficult, unless you're in a suburb or in a part where there's a lot of people living, of course. But the Melkweg is very open towards people who have ideas, who want to do something, like organize a benefit or organize something. It's also something from the old time. It went away for a while, but it has become very popular again, I find, in the last 10, 15 years, that young people are interested in helping somebody, helping something, organizing something. So the Melkweg is always open to that kind of.
Space.
Yeah, and help them organize things. If you think that they know what they're doing, and that they can find artists to support their cause and stuff. But yeah.
Apart the shows, do you have other cultural activities? I don't say a concert, theater spectacle. There are other kinds of cultural activities.
In the building, besides the like 5 different kinds of things that we work in, like dance and theater and music, exhibitions. Yeah, one of the things we do since years is also try to be involved in the social and political discussion. And so we started an event like 8 years ago called the President's Night on the day of the American president's elections. This was this event with performers, but also lots of politicians, discussions, like an informational evening for young people. And it was a big success. It sold out completely at 1,750 people. So we've been doing that with all the American president elections, and we've also started to do that with elections in the Netherlands. And politicians want to come because they want to, they want to be to see young people as well, and not only older people, and not only party members. So this has been something from the last 10 years that we started to develop this kind of event, and also have some music there, some DJs and bands at the end of the evening, but entertain serious discussions and workshop kind of situations. And yeah.
Can you tell me in short terms what for you means enjoy one network? Why?
Yeah, and
what?
Yeah, enjoy what?
I want networking.
Yeah.
What means for you networking with other spaces, and you are one of the founder of Transfer Calls, no?
Yeah.
Together with Philip,
I used to see the word networking as a negative term, but we talked about it a long time ago, somehow. And I have learned that what I did for the Melkweg, it was very important to be a networker. To be a networker to the outside world, in the city, with the politicians, with the civil servants, with companies. If you want sponsors, you need to sell what you're doing. You need to go to places. You need to be in places. And This is what I call functional networking, basically. And I think on many levels, I think it's, if you call Transjobhal a network, and the meetings that Transjobhal organizes, bringing people together from all over the world, from different backgrounds, from different countries, I see it as something very positive. I always really enjoyed being in a city which was very different than where I come from, and going to cultural places or centers that, and see how people are running that, and having a beer with them after, things like that.
How do you integrate new people, the young generation? How do you deal with this, like, switching generations in the group?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the people, of the young people who start to work there, I found out through my son some time ago, when they first start to go to the Melkweg, to the club nights on Saturday night, try to sneak in when you're 16 or 17, 18 is official. And then after a while they find out that it's much better to work there than to go and buy tickets. Because when you work there, you have friends, it's very nice to work there, but you get paid, you get drinks for half price, and you can put your friends on the guest list. So a lot of people really and suddenly a lot of his friends were all working there, starting as in the garderobe or starting work as collecting glasses, during the concerts, like the not so very nice work, but you have to start somewhere. And so what I find is that on this level, on the work floor, that people, this goes very easy, young generations, because they start to come as visitors and try to work there, and people really like to work there. That's for some reason there are a lot of places where they don't want to do the same work that they do in a place like the Melkweg. I think because they feel involved, part of it, and the program is interesting, of course, compared to many other places.
I would like to propose maybe the last two questions, and then we can continue formally when we have the dinner and so, the last question.
A very, very good idea. Yeah. You don't have to ask any more questions. You asked a lot of questions already, because I've been very often in situations where you talk for 45 minutes and say, any questions? You mean a mistake in the planning of the building? I should have thought about this before. Yeah, there's always things that go wrong, but the last 20 years I have tried very much to avoid that by involving everybody, on preparing very well if you want to do something, involving all the people in the building, in designing the plan, having a good architect, and trying to avoid major failures. But you want to hear one, I think. In 2010 years ago, we built in an elevator from the ground floor to what is only the second floor, but there's the theater, and so that. And for transport, and also for people in wheelchairs to be able to go to the theater and stuff like that. And the the construction company who was building the elevator, they had to make this big hole in the floor, because under an elevator you have to have space, like 2 meters or 1.5 meters, something. And while this reconstruction was going on, the Melkweg was open, We always were open during all these rebuildings, with that part of the building that was not being rebuilt was open, because the Melkweg can never afford to close, because the income is so important. If you close for 3 months, you're bankrupt. There's no way that could ever happen. So the construction company made this big hole on Friday, but something went wrong. The hole filled up with water badly, because the building is very close to the canal, and it kept filling up with water, and they tried to pump it away, and they never managed to get the water out. In the end, they had to change the plan, and in the factory built a huge iron box, and the box was brought to the Melkweg, and the box was pushed in the hole where the water was. And they put cement around it, and that's how they managed to close it off. But it was a spectacle for like 10 days of this bubbling water being pumped away, actually being in the middle of the building, like 3 by 3 meters. But the end was okay.
And any conceptual mistakes? Like bad functioning?
Yes and no. The no is like, if you build spaces in an existing building, you always do the maximum of what is possible within the limitations of the building. It's never perfect. If you want it perfect, you have to build a new building and not start in an old one. So you always have to, on some point say, okay, this is not 100%, it's 96, but we'll do it with 96%. And no, otherwise, but yeah, no, we were lucky last. Nothing really worked out. Okay, I wanted a flexible stage of parts that you could make larger, bigger, take out, and that is not working that well, because the reflection of the base is too loud under the stage. So in the end, we had to build a wall under the stage to stop the base and the stage going from this. Yeah.
So thank you very much for coming.
Okay,
The long journey and to spend the time with us.
my pleasure. Thank you.